Major labels destroyed hip hop, and Afrobeats is next. Let me tell you why. Hip hop's been the #1 genre in the world for well over a decade. And over the last 2 to 3 years since COVID, we started to see a gradual decline in popularity and revenue for various reasons, but mainly the role that major labels played and the rise of international acts around the world. I've seen the writing on the wall for a couple years now, but a tweet recently put up by DJ Ebro, the head of editorial of hip hop and R&B at Apple Music, confirm my suspicions. So I'm going to get into a little bit of why I think hip hop is dying, how the labels poured gasoline on the fire and sped up the process, and what this means for international acts and international music around the world now that they're major label priorities. The decline of rap has a lot to do with media and internet access around the world. America has been the leader in media and entertainment for as long as I can remember, which just allowed the things that we make here to travel a lot further than other markets are able to get them in other places. And so with hip hop being only 50 years old, the newest genre in recent memory coming out of America, it only made sense that the young people would take to it and push its message global. But the way that technology works over time, everything gets cheaper to produce, which means more people got access to the same tools that gave us an advantage originally here in America: cameras, high-speed internet, mics, lights, you name it. And so these markets with a lot less access initially, who are watching us do so well over here, eventually were able to get access to the exact same equipment that we have, which put them on an even playing field in terms of capability of making things, if that makes sense. And so it was only a matter of time before they got just as competent and as good as us in these fields. Rapping brought a new energy to music that hadn't been really seen in many parts of the world in this way here in America. And I think that, combined with the fact that a lot of these other markets like Sub-Saharan Africa, the Caribbean, South America, and other places have a lot older styles of music. They have an understanding of sonics that maybe we don't really tap into here. And we combine that with the new freshness of the style and the aesthetic and the culture of hip hop, I think you get something really special. For example, look at artists like Burna Boy or like Bad Bunny. They take clear inspiration from artists over here, and they've said it in interviews before. Burna Boy's referenced Naughty by Nature, DMX. Bad Bunny's referenced artists like Drake. And I think this is just the way a lot of music and art works. And it's very clear in the biggest artists coming out of West Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, etc. Another thing I was thinking about as I started traveling outside the country was the fact that a lot of music has a longer lifespan in other places, right? You go to different Caribbean parties, even in Florida, or if you go down to the Caribbean like Jamaica, Trinidad, etc., they play a lot of older music that resonates with a lot of people there, even the younger people. You talk to younger people, they might not know the artist's name or the name of the song, but they play off at so many parties and so many events that they end up living on a lot longer than a lot of the hip hop music does here. As you know, like a hip hop album comes out this week, and by next week, a lot of people have already forgotten. And I think that this music living on for so much longer allows them to have an appreciation for higher quality music that they know is just going to last longer. And I think we don't have that. I think we know it when we see it here, but we just don't see it as frequently in America because of the consumerism and the capitalistic nature of the labels. So this is how the major labels made it worse, in my opinion. The labels have one real goal, and that's to make money, increase the bottom line. They're going to invest in 100 artists, and then when one of them blows up, they're going to try and emulate that sound. They're going to pour gasoline on that fire, and then they're going to make it formulaic and try and apply that same formula to everybody else on their label. And what this does, in my opinion, is burn out the sound and creates a lot of artificial stuff throughout music. So if you have an artist like, let's say DaBaby, I'll just use him as an example, and look at how he ended up rising. It was very formulaic in the way that the beats sounded, his hook sounded, and I feel like the labels are just going to tell him to make more of that until the point where people don't want to hear it anymore. And then artists that they think could have overlapping demographics, they're going to try and replicate that with them. And I don't think music works that way, right? Like, what works for one person isn't going to necessarily work for another, but the labels are trying to make it all ones and zeros, X's and O's, because they're about the dollar bill. So I think that over a long enough time horizon is just bound to destroy any genre of music, because art isn't formulaic in that way. The major labels have been so reactionary in the way that they go about it that I think they're not really attempting to allow artists to be innovative, which stifles creativity. But at the same time, if you're able to just invest money into any artist that needs money, you don't really need to be innovative from their perspective, right? From a consumer perspective, we might have fatigue over certain sounds, but if they can just go spend money with somebody else, then they're not really necessarily worried about, do I need to be innovative in this space in terms of the actual art? You know what I mean? If they can just fund something and see an ROI on that investment, they're not even really thinking about it. So what does this mean for the future of music abroad? Basically, the way I think about it is that a lot of artists like Burna Boy, Central C, Bad Bunny, all have inspiration from a lot of hip hop and rap artists here in America. But I think that they take a lot of influence from the places that they're from. And so mixing that together, I think brings new energy to what hip hop is today, right? Like I would consider Burna Boy hip hop. I would consider Central C hip hop. I would even consider Bad Bunny hip hop adjacent, if that makes any sense. So I think that a lot of these markets, you're starting to see these stars pop up doing hip hop and rap in their own native tongue, right? Dave just went #1 in France with an artist, Tia Cola, who I had never heard of, who is a star over there. And he's rapping in French, and I think we're going to see a version of this in almost every market. So what does this mean for the future of music here? I think that the decline of hip hop combined with the demographics or the makeup of America right now is going to allow Afrobeats and reggaeton to flourish. As I mentioned before, DJ Ebro put out a tweet saying that major labels are deprioritizing rappers and prioritizing African and Latin artists. And what this means is we're going to get a lot more sounds being pushed that we probably haven't seen on a major popular scale to date, right? And I think it's going to happen really, really fast. I think it's already happening. Burna Boy is Patient Zero. He just released his album, I Told Them, a couple weeks ago. And if you saw the rollout for it, they were intentionally trying to get him out there in markets that previously they were not trying to, right? Like if you looked at the album listening dates and where they were at these different vinyl shops in not even just A, B, but C markets. My brother lives in Tallahassee and they had a listening party in Tallahassee, which isn't a huge city in Florida. But that just goes to show you what they're trying to do. They're trying to make him a priority at the label and push his music into this market in a bigger way than they have prior. I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I am excited for a lot of my friends and more Americans to hear more African acts and be exposed to them in a different way, right? I've been listening to a lot of international music for the last, I would say 3 to 4 years. And when I put people on with it, sometimes they have no idea who I'm talking about. So if major labels are going to get behind a lot of my favorite artists, like a Burna Boy or like even a Stormzy, right? Like somebody like that, I'm all for it. But I think it only works to an extent, right? I think the reason hip hop ended up dying off or is in the decline as it is today is because of the part that major labels played over the long enough period of time. And I think they're going to have that same effect with any type of music that they have, right? Or any type of music that they end up investing in over a long enough time horizon. So I am a little bit skeptical and a little iffy to see where this goes. But in the short term, I am excited for more Americans to get to hear new music. So based off everything I gave you guys here today, what do you guys think is going to eventually happen to hip hop here in America, around the world? And how do you think Afrobeats and reggaeton are going to take off in the next couple of years? I'm interested to see what you guys think about it.